The Navajo, known as the Dine, are one of the most significant indigenous nations of North America. Their ancestral journey began centuries ago, with roots in the Athabascan-speaking peoples of Western Canada. Around the year 1300 CE, some of these groups migrated south, eventually settling in the American Southwest. The Dine established their presence in regions that now encompass Arizona, New Mexico, and parts of Colorado and Utah. The Navajo origin story is deeply spiritual and ties them to the land. According to their beliefs, the Dine emerged from 3 subterranean worlds, traveling through colors of black, blue, and yellow before arriving in the luminous 4th world. This sacred emergence is said to have occurred in the La Plata Mountains of Colorado. Here, the gods created the 4 sacred mountains Blanca Peak, Mount Taylor, the San Francisco Peaks, and Mount Hesperus as protective boundaries. These mountains, along with 4 rivers such as the San Juan, formed the sacred geography of the Navajo world, symbolizing safety, harmony, and spiritual connection. The significance of the 4 sacred mountains goes beyond their physical presence. Each mountain is associated with cardinal directions, specific colors, and spiritual beings. Blanca Peak in the east symbolizes the beginning of life and is associated with the color white. Mount Taylor in the south represents growth and vitality, linked to the color blue. The San Francisco Peaks in the west embody maturity and are represented by the color yellow, while Mount Hesperus in the north signifies wisdom and is associated with the color black. Together, these mountains create a spiritual map, guiding the Navajo in their daily lives and rituals. In addition to the mountains, the sacred rivers play a critical role in Navajo cosmology. These rivers act as natural boundaries and serve as life-giving forces, sustaining both the physical and spiritual well-being of the Navajo people. The San Juan River, in particular, is featured prominently in Navajo myths and ceremonies. It is said to act as a guardian, protecting the Navajo from external threats while ensuring the flow of prosperity and balance within their lands. The spiritual connection to the land is further reinforced through oral traditions and ceremonies. Navajo elders pass down creation stories and teachings that emphasize the interdependence of humans, nature, and the divine. These stories are not merely tales, but are integral to understanding the Navajo worldview. For instance, the journey through the 3 subterranean worlds to the 4th world is symbolic of personal growth and transformation. It teaches the importance of perseverance, balance, and the pursuit of harmony. Hazo, a central concept in Navajo philosophy, encapsulates this pursuit of harmony. Often translated as beauty, balance, or order, Hazo guides the Navajo in maintaining equilibrium within themselves and with the world around them. This principle is evident in every aspect of Navajo life, from their daily routines to their most sacred rituals. Living in accordance with Hazo is believed to bring health, happiness, and prosperity, while its disruption can lead to illness, misfortune, and discord. Ceremonies play a vital role in restoring and maintaining Hazo, performed by medicine men known as Hadali. These ceremonies address a wide range of issues, from physical ailments to spiritual imbalances. The Blessing Way and Enemy Way are 2 of the most significant ceremonies in Navajo culture. The Blessing Way focuses on protection, healing, and the reinforcement of positive energy, while the Enemy Way is designed to combat negative influences, particularly those brought about by conflict or trauma. Both ceremonies involve intricate rituals, songs, and prayers that connect participants to the divine and realign them with the principles of Hazo. The Hogan, the traditional Navajo dwelling, embodies the principles of Hazo and the Navajo's connection to the land. Built from wood and earth, the Hogan is more than a shelter. It is a sacred space aligned with cosmic principles. The doorway of every Hogan faces east, welcoming the rising sun and symbolizing renewal and new beginnings. The circular structure represents the cyclical nature of life and the interconnectedness of all things. Within the Hogan, daily activities are imbued with spiritual significance, reinforcing the Navajo's commitment to living in harmony with the natural world. This profound connection to their environment is also reflected in Navajo art and craftsmanship. Navajo weaving, for instance, is not only a practical skill but a deeply symbolic practice. Each rug or blanket tells a story, incorporating patterns and colors that hold spiritual meanings. Red might symbolize the life-giving power of the sun, while black could represent the protective energy of the sacred mountains. The act of weaving itself is considered a form of prayer, a way of bringing Hazo into tangible form. The Navajos' spiritual and cultural practices have enabled them to endure centuries of external pressures, from Spanish colonization to forced relocations by the U.S. government. Despite these challenges, their worldview remains intact, offering a framework for resilience and adaptation. By grounding their identity in the principles of Hazo and their sacred connection to the land, the Navajo continue to thrive as a people, preserving their traditions while navigating the complexities of the modern world. The Navajo's history is marked by adaptability and cultural exchange. In the 17th century, they encountered Pueblo refugees fleeing Spanish suppression following the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. These interactions enriched Navajo culture, introducing techniques such as painted pottery and weaving. Over time, Navajo artisans developed their unique styles, particularly in the creation of intricate rugs and blankets, which remain highly valued today. The arrival of the Spanish in the 16th century further influenced Navajo society. Livestock like sheep, goats, and horses transformed their subsistence patterns. Sheep herding became central to the Navajo economy, while horses expanded their mobility and capacity for trade. By adopting and integrating new tools and skills from neighboring tribes and settlers, the Navajo showcased remarkable resilience and innovation. This adaptability allowed them to flourish as one of the largest tribes in the Southwest. Spanish colonization, however, brought both opportunities and challenges. While the Navajo adopted beneficial practices, they resisted Spanish efforts to impose Christianity and integrate them into the mission system. Frequent skirmishes and raids underscored the Navajos' determination to maintain their autonomy and cultural integrity. Yet, the Navajos' pragmatic approach to interaction, selectively adopting useful practices while rejecting others, enabled them to navigate these challenges with resilience. Trade and alliances also played a crucial role in shaping Navajo society. The Navajo engaged in trade networks that extended beyond their immediate neighbors, exchanging goods such as rugs, livestock, and crafts for weapons, tools, and other resources. These interactions facilitated cultural exchange and provided the Navajo with the means to adapt to changing circumstances. For example, silverworking, learned from Mexican artisans, became a hallmark of Navajo craftsmanship, resulting in the creation of intricate jewelry that remains celebrated worldwide. The influence of neighboring tribes, such as the Pueblo and Apache, further enriched Navajo culture. The Pueblo's agricultural practices and artistic traditions, for instance, inspired the Navajo to incorporate new techniques and designs into their own work. Similarly, interactions with the Apache influenced Navajo strategies for mobility and defense. These cultural exchanges highlight the interconnectedness of indigenous peoples in the Southwest and the ways in which they learned from and supported one another. Despite these interactions, the Navajo faced persistent threats from external forces. Spanish, Mexican, and later American authorities sought to control Navajo lands and resources, leading to conflicts and displacement. The resilience and adaptability demonstrated by the Navajo during these periods of upheaval laid the foundation for their survival and continued growth as a people. The mid-19th century brought one of the darkest and most harrowing chapters in Navajo history: the Long Walk and the forced relocation of thousands of Navajo people. This period was marked by the aggressive westward expansion of the United States and its relentless efforts to dominate indigenous lands. For the Navajo, the encroachment of settlers, combined with military campaigns, represented an existential threat to their culture, autonomy, and very way of life. The tensions between the Navajo and the U.S. government reached a boiling point in the early 1860s. Settlers demanded more land for expansion, while the government sought to secure the territory and its resources. These pressures culminated in 1863 when General Kit Carson was tasked with subjugating the Navajo people. Under orders, Carson launched a brutal scorched earth campaign designed to dismantle the Navajos' ability to resist. Carson's campaign was devastatingly methodical. His forces targeted Navajo villages, destroying crops, slaughtering livestock, and burning orchards that had sustained generations of Navajo families. The destruction of these vital resources left the Navajo with little choice but to surrender or face starvation. The psychological impact was equally profound, as entire communities were displaced and their sacred connection to the land was severed. In 1864, following the systematic dismantling of their resources, thousands of Navajo men, women, and children were forcibly removed from their homeland. This removal marked the beginning of the infamous Long Walk, a forced march of over 300 miles from their ancestral lands in Arizona to Bosque Redondo, a desolate reservation near Fort Sumner, New Mexico. The journey was grueling and fraught with unimaginable hardships. The conditions during the Long Walk were horrific. The Navajo were given minimal food and water, and many were forced to march in extreme weather conditions without adequate clothing or shelter. Disease, exhaustion, and starvation claimed countless lives along the way. Survivors recounted harrowing tales of family members collapsing from exhaustion, never to rise again. The emotional toll was equally devastating, as they were forcibly separated from their sacred homeland, a place deeply intertwined with their spiritual and cultural identity. Upon their arrival at Bosque Redondo, the Navajo faced further suffering. The reservation, chosen without regard for its suitability, was arid and inhospitable. The land was ill-suited for farming, and the government's promises of provisions were grossly inadequate. Disease spread rapidly in the overcrowded conditions, and many Navajo perished from malnutrition, exposure, and illness. Survivors described Bosque Redondo as a prison of death, a place where hope seemed all but lost. Despite the dire circumstances, the Navajo demonstrated remarkable resilience. They drew strength from their cultural traditions, maintaining their identity and unity even in the face of immense suffering. Elders shared stories to preserve their history and instill hope in younger generations, while ceremonies were performed to maintain spiritual balance. These acts of cultural preservation became acts of resistance, a refusal to let their identity be erased. The failure of the Bosque Redondo experiment became evident to the U.S. government after 4 years of suffering. In 1868, recognizing the untenable conditions and the resilience of the Navajo people, the government negotiated a treaty allowing the Navajo to return to a portion of their ancestral lands. The Treaty of 1868 was a monumental moment in Navajo history. It not only marked the end of the Long Walk, but also signified the beginning of their journey to rebuild their lives and communities. Following the Treaty of 1868 and their return from the harrowing Long Walk, the Navajo people faced the monumental task of rebuilding their lives. Though they had been allowed to return to their homeland, the land was ravaged, and much of their former way of life had been dismantled. Yet, the Navajo exhibited remarkable resilience, turning adversity into an opportunity for cultural rebirth and expansion. Art became a critical avenue for the Navajo to express their identity and preserve their traditions. Navajo weaving, an art form learned from Pueblo neighbors, but uniquely adapted by the Dine, saw a resurgence. The introduction of commercial dyes and wool from their sheep herds allowed weavers to create more intricate and vibrant designs. Rugs and blankets produced by Navajo artisans became highly sought after, not only within their communities, but also among settlers and collectors. These textiles served as both functional items and symbols of the Navajo's enduring cultural pride. Silverwork also became a hallmark of Navajo artistry during this period. Influenced by Mexican silversmiths, the Navajo adapted the craft to create jewelry that reflected their traditions and values. Conchos, bracelets, necklaces, and belt buckles were adorned with intricate patterns that often held spiritual significance. The incorporation of turquoise, a stone revered for its protective and healing properties, further rooted these pieces in Navajo cosmology. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Navajo silver jewelry had become synonymous with indigenous southwestern art, cementing the tribe's reputation as master artisans. Economically, the Navajo relied heavily on sheep herding and livestock management, industries that had been introduced during Spanish colonization. Sheep became a central element of Navajo life, providing not only wool for weaving, but also meat and trade opportunities. The flocks represented both sustenance and wealth, allowing the Navajo to maintain a degree of economic independence even in the face of external pressures. As trade networks expanded, the Navajo became key players in the southwestern economy, exchanging goods with neighboring tribes, settlers, and trading posts. The Navajo's connection to their land and natural resources also played a crucial role in their resurgence. Farming practices, though limited by the arid environment, were adapted to make the most of available water sources. Corn, beans, and squash, the traditional Three Sisters crops, remain staples of Navajo agriculture. These crops were not only essential for sustenance, but also held spiritual significance, symbolizing life, harmony, and resilience. Ceremonies tied to planting and harvesting reinforced the Navajo's connection to their land and their traditions. As their population grew, so did their territorial claims. The Navajo Reservation, originally established in 1868, expanded significantly over the following decades, eventually encompassing over 27,000 square miles. This made it the largest Native American reservation in the United States, a testament to the Navajo's ability to assert their rights and secure their future. The land remains a cornerstone of Navajo identity, providing not only physical sustenance, but also a spiritual anchor for their cultural practices. The early 20th century brought new challenges and opportunities for the Navajo people. Federal policies aimed at assimilating indigenous populations threatened to erode their cultural identity. Boarding schools, designed to strip Native children of their languages and traditions, left a lasting impact on many Navajo families. Yet, the Navajo resisted these efforts, finding ways to preserve their heritage even in the face of systemic oppression. Elders continued to pass down oral histories, ceremonies, and traditional skills, ensuring that the essence of Navajo culture remained intact. The period also saw the emergence of Navajo leaders who advocated for their people on a national stage. Figures like Manolito, who had negotiated with the U.S. government in earlier years, inspired a new generation of leaders to fight for Navajo sovereignty and self-determination. These efforts laid the groundwork for the establishment of the Navajo Nation as a political entity, capable of negotiating its own terms with federal and state governments. The cultural renaissance of the Navajo during this period was not just about survival, but also about thriving. By reclaiming and adapting their traditions, the Navajo demonstrated their resilience and creativity, ensuring that their identity would endure for generations to come. Today, the art, stories, and practices that emerged from this period remain vital components of Navajo culture, celebrated both within their communities and around the world. One of the most celebrated chapters in Navajo history occurred during World War II, when the Navajo Code Talkers played a pivotal role in the Allied victory in the Pacific Theater. Their ingenuity and linguistic expertise not only contributed to the war effort, but also brought recognition to the Navajo people on a global scale. The idea of using the Navajo language as a military code was first proposed by Philip Johnston, a non-Navajo man who had grown up on a Navajo reservation and was fluent in the language. Recognizing its complexity and the fact that it was an unwritten language, Johnson suggested it as the foundation for an unbreakable code. In 1942, the U.S. Marine Corps began recruiting Navajo men to serve as code talkers, a decision that would prove instrumental in securing victory in key battles. The Navajo Code Talkers developed a sophisticated code that translated military terms into Navajo. For example, the word turtle was used to describe a tank, while chicken hawk referred to a dive bomber. The code was both simple enough for the Navajo to use effectively and complex enough to baffle enemy forces. Unlike standard encryption methods, which could be deciphered given enough time, The Navajo Code was virtually impenetrable because it was rooted in a language known only to the Navajo people. The Code Talkers were deployed in some of the most critical battles of the Pacific Theater, including Guadalcanal, Saipan, and Iwo Jima. Their contributions were particularly vital during the Battle of Iwo Jima, where they transmitted over 800 messages without error. Major Howard Connor, a Marine Corps officer, famously stated, "Were it not for the Navajos, the Marines would never have taken Iwo Jima." The success of the Navajo Code Talkers was a source of immense pride for the Navajo Nation. At a time when many Native Americans faced discrimination and marginalization, the Code Talkers demonstrated the value of their language and culture on a global stage. Their efforts not only helped secure victory in World War II, but also challenged stereotypes and highlighted the contributions of indigenous peoples to American society. After the war, the Code Talkers returned home as heroes, but their achievements remained classified for decades. It was not until 1968 that their contributions were officially recognized, and even then, many of the Code Talkers received little formal acknowledgement or compensation. In the years since, efforts have been made to honor their legacy through memorials, documentaries, and educational initiatives. The annual Navajo Code Talkers Day, celebrated on August 14th, serves as a reminder of their extraordinary contributions and the enduring strength of the Navajo people. The story of the Navajo Code Talkers is not just a tale of military ingenuity, but also a testament to the resilience and adaptability of the Navajo Nation. By using their language, a cornerstone of their cultural identity, to serve a greater cause, the Code Talkers exemplified the Navajo spirit of balance, harmony, and service. Their legacy continues to inspire future generations, both within the Navajo Nation and beyond. In the modern era, the Navajo Nation faces a complex array of challenges and opportunities. With a population exceeding 300,000 and a land base that spans over 27,000 square miles, the Navajo Nation is the largest Native American reservation in the United States. This vast territory, while a source of pride, also presents unique difficulties in terms of governance, infrastructure, and economic development. One of the most pressing issues facing the Navajo Nation is access to basic services. Many communities lack reliable access to clean water, electricity, and health care. The remote nature of much of the reservation makes it difficult to build and maintain infrastructure, leaving many Navajo families without the amenities that much of the country takes for granted. Efforts are underway to address these disparities, including investments in renewable energy projects, water infrastructure, and telemedicine initiatives. Economic development remains a priority for the Navajo Nation. Historically reliant on natural resource extraction, including coal and uranium mining, the tribe is now exploring more sustainable avenues for growth. Renewable energy projects, such as solar and wind farms, are being developed to provide both revenue and jobs for the community. Tourism also represents a significant opportunity, with landmarks like Monument Valley and Canyon de Chelly drawing visitors from around the world. However, efforts are being made to ensure that tourism is conducted in a way that respects Navajo culture and the sanctity of their lands. Education is another critical focus area. Programs aimed at revitalizing the Navajo language and integrating it into school curricula are helping to preserve this cornerstone of Navajo identity. Higher education initiatives, including scholarships and partnerships with universities, are enabling more Navajo youth to pursue advanced degrees and return to the reservation as leaders and professionals. These efforts are not only strengthening the Navajo Nation, but also empowering its future generations to navigate the complexities of the modern world. Cultural preservation remains at the heart of the Navajo Nation's vision for the future. Traditional practices, ceremonies, and art forms continue to thrive, serving as a bridge between past and present. The Navajos' commitment to environmental stewardship, rooted in their spiritual connection to the land, guides their advocacy for sustainable development and the protection of natural resources. Legal battles over water rights and resource management underscore their determination to safeguard their heritage for future generations. The Navajo Nation's journey is one of resilience, adaptation, and hope. By blending traditional values with modern innovation, the Navajo are charting a path forward that honors their past while embracing the opportunities of the future. Their story serves as a powerful reminder of the enduring strength of indigenous peoples and their vital contributions to the cultural and social fabric of the United States.